Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Blockchain Show. Got a special guest today, Mr. Luke Stokes. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, honor's all mine. I know that we talked with David last year from the Foundation for Interwallet Operability. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself to our audience and maybe kind of tell us how you got involved and even bring us up to speed, if you would.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite questions in the space is always like, so how did you get into blockchain, right? Like it's kind of in every meetup, that's always kind of that joint connection point that we all have. I got into the blockchain space more than 7 years ago now that I think about it. 2013, I bought my first Bitcoin. I spent about $50 and I got 2.5 Bitcoin. I was like, that's pretty cool. And then it went crazy after that. I was in Nashville at the time, started a Bitcoin meetup, and just kind of through the space, saw the block size debate drama going on and lack of on-chain governance. And I was a little disenchanted, watched it go to 1,200 down to 250. And it's like, man, I thought this was going to change the world and decentralize all the things, global nonviolent consensus. It's going to be great. And then it kind of fizzled out, right? But then Steam came along, that blockchain in 2016, and I was excited to see just everyday people using a blockchain, blogging and stuff like that. Through Steam, got familiar with Dan Larimer's projects, delegated proof of stake, that kind of stuff, and ended up joining a block producer on EOS called EOS Stack. Very passionate about decentralized autonomous communities, DACs and DAOs. And so we started building tools to make that more approachable. So anyone can just kind of spin up their own DAC instead of starting a startup or a centralized company. And actually start using this blockchain governance, these tools for accountability, transparency, all these beautiful things. And then as part of that process went on, I ended up connecting with Dappix, which is the company behind the FIO Protocol, and started working with them. Actually, it would be October 2018, I guess. And then they brought me on as a consultant in January. And I was eventually, as they got their funding round with Binance, I became their chief decentralization officer. That was my official title. And as things progressed forward, they were looking for a managing director for the foundation itself. And it was just kind of a perfect fit and all worked out. So as of December, I've been the managing director of the Foundation for Interwallet Operability. And for me, the reason I'm excited about this particular project is I feel like it's one that can just go across all the different silos that we see, all the crypto tribalism in the space. And it's something that every chain, every wallet, every exchange can support and be a part of and increase usability towards mass adoption. So that's what I'm really passionate about, really excited about.
I like that term, crypto tribes or crypto tribalism. That's pretty interesting because it seems to be very true. There's some pretty hardcore camp, and we talk to broad spectrum, sometimes even Bitcoin maximalists and minimalists and everything in between. But one thing I really liked about FIO was the ability to have a mechanism to communicate between different wallets. What's changed since you got involved with the company, and what are some trends that you see going forward into the future?
Yeah. Let me just, for those who maybe didn't catch the other episode, I'll just give a little brief understanding of what it is. So the FIO protocol, the Foundation for Interwallet Operability protocol, is really kind of this fully not owned and controlled by any one entity. The nonprofit entity that we're setting up really is going to be a DAC in terms of a decentralized autonomous consortium, and where it's going to be owned and operated by those with skin in the game, or actually guided by those with skin in the game. And from that approach, we're going to create a usability layer for every crypto endpoint. So that means wallets, exchanges, any crypto-enabled app, payment systems, anything like that. So you could do FIO request for send. So instead of saying, hey, what's your Bitcoin address? I need to send you some money. You can actually do that as a key exchange. So I can use my key in your wallet. You get a notification and it'll say, for example, Luke at Stokes wants to request, $10 in Bitcoin, and it'll have FIO data applied to that. So metadata saying, hey, this is for slipping lunch today. And I get that right in my wallet as a nice little request. And then within my wallet interface, I say, yeah, okay, go ahead and send that. And then it flops over right to the native wallet experience and they send out the Bitcoin. So unlike other systems where, it's completely agnostic to the chain you're using, which I really like that. It kind of sits above all of that at the endpoint layer. So you don't have to modify the chain in any way. You don't have to do anything to integrate with FIO at the blockchain layer because it's all in the wallet layer. And it's really kind of eliminating the need for these different projects to radically improve their user experience because we kind of have that built in. And so as long as their token project, for example, is on Edge Wallet or BRD or Konomi or Trust Wallet, any of the wallets that support the FIO protocol, they automatically get all that for free. And now each blockchain project can focus on the one thing that they're going to add the most value to. So some of the things that have changed since I've got on board is we've been kind of finalizing the actual naming convention. I think at one point we were playing around with a dot, and then for a while it was like a colon separating the name from the domain. And we've just recently agreed, and it was kind of a fun interaction with our board members and our community, kind of the first agreement decision we had to make it an @ sign. So it's just Luke at Stokes or Luke at Edge or whatever your name and domain is. It's just really intuitive, really simple because there's no TLD, there's no .com or anything. It's not necessarily going to be too confused with email addresses. And I think it's just going to be much, much easier to use, much, much simpler. Again, with the request for data, the request for send, the FIO address itself, it's going to map to either your whole wallet or a specific chain within a wallet or a specific address on a specific chain in a wallet, however you want to set it up. And then, of course, the FIO metadata itself. You can do structured data like shopping carts and things like that. For 10 years, I ran a company called FoxyCart, my business partner and I, and it's an e-commerce shopping cart company. If you go to the Bitcoin wiki, there's actually an entry for FoxyCart. I think still there because like in 2013, we were really hyping people to get integrated with the payment gateways so they could accept cryptocurrency. But a lot of the stores just didn't do it. We had thousands of stores and they were like, why would I add friction, on the checkout page? I would increase my cart abandonment. Nobody understands how this works. It's too complicated. And I just, through that experience, I realized until we make cryptocurrency easier to use, we're not going to see it be used as a payment mechanism on a payment rail system. So that's another reason I'm passionate about this particular project, because I think it can solve a problem that we all want to see. And you asked earlier about trends. One of the things that a friend of mine was saying earlier is if you look at the adoption rates for the internet, for example, it kind of was doubling every year, right up to like when it hit 1%, it doubled to 2%. And by the time it hit 4%, you were kind of like at that .com moment. Everybody's talking about it in the year 2000. And based on the data he was looking at, he's convinced that we've just hit 1% of global adoption. 2020 will potentially be 2% if it continues that doubling pattern he's seen. And then you look at 2021, for example, and you hit that 4%. I mean, the blockchain space hasn't even had our .com moment.
Wow, 1%. That's crazy. It sounds like nothing, but that's actually kind of a big deal. It used to be.
Oh, it's huge.
Like nothing. So
I mean, they talk about it on the news and stuff, right? It's like this crazy little white paper that was, just over 10 years old. People talk about it all over the place now. Actually, just the other day, I had a conversation with someone who had never heard of Bitcoin. And it was so great. We had this great conversation, and I'm explaining to him DAX and DAOs and DeFi and like all these neat things you can do for it. And he's just like, wow, money without the government. That's amazing. And I'm just like, that's fun. Like, you don't actually find people who haven't heard of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, I love it. There may be one or two people that's going to tune into this episode that, this is their introduction. It's really cool, man. And I like how you described the FIO protocol. I try to conceptualize the blockchain industry, for lack of a better term, but do you foresee this as kind of like a industry standard kind of protocol?
Yeah, I really do hope so. I know there are other great teams working on similar things, but they don't have the full routing functionality that we are building. And I look at it, there's a great analogy that David, the CEO of Davix, comes up with that I've used often. And it's essentially like the internet was around for 10 years prior to HTTP coming out. And there really wasn't that many people using it, right? But when HTTP comes out, all of a sudden you get the World Wide Web, you get web browsers, you get a user experience that is adoptable and they can actually understand it, right? I think we're in a similar space with blockchain. It's 10 years in and still confusing. Public addresses are confusing. People lose funds on QR codes that aren't, secure and all these different funky things going on. And now we get the FIO protocol, and it's a protocol that can be guided by all the different members who have skin in the game, all the stakeholders. No one company that's going to be running it. It's going to be in a decentralized, autonomous consortium. And I think it's going to unlock other opportunities, just like HTTP did. Now, it's very different than HTTP. It's not actually, that type of a protocol. But the analogy, I think, makes sense in terms of, we need a usability solution. It has to be at least as easy to use as PayPal or Venmo, these other things people are familiar with. By adding that request functionality, adding that metadata, adding the ability to kind of look through your transaction history across any different chain and see it all there with an understanding of what it was for. It's going to help with people's personal accounting. I mean, I've told people from the beginning, 7 years running now, if you're in this space, you got to be your own bank. And I have a spreadsheet that a gazillion people have downloaded now that I've used to help me manage that. But that's difficult. Not everybody does that. So providing tools that are going to make that easier, I think, is really important.
Absolutely. And now I know that the head of Binance Labs, Ella Zhang, said, "We invested in the decentralized FIO protocol because we believe that it has the ability to be the usability layer for the entire blockchain ecosystem." And I know that there was, I think, 25 FIO Foundation members that have already started to integrate the protocol that you're talking about. Is that number gone up, or what do we see going into this first quarter of 2020?
Yeah, we're actually, I think the last number is around 28 with the members and affiliates, and we have our testnet up and running. So you can actually check that out right now. We've got a group of, I think the latest is between 8 or 10 block producers working with us on the testnet. We've got a bunch of others that we've signed agreements with. It's really exciting. Our plan has been Q1 to launch the full mainnet blockchain. And so we're still on that schedule. We originally were optimistically hoping it would be mid-January. Clearly, we're past that now, but we're kind of working through what are the critical things that have to be developed in the protocol, different bug fixes. We've got some really great teams coming in doing some extensive security audits and performance testing, and they found a few things here and there that were like, yeah, we definitely want to fix that now. So we're kind of right in the trenches. We had a 4 or 5 hour meeting on Monday to go through all kinds of different stuff for the mainnet launch. So it's a pretty exciting time. And as I'm sure you can imagine, there are different token events that will be happening in the future. And you can look at people that are excited about what we're doing. Obviously, can't talk about all that publicly yet. But, these are the type of things we're lining up. And it's pretty exciting. And the more I think about this, the more it's just a matter of getting people to know about it. So again, I'm so thankful to be on your show, because once people find out about it, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, especially if they've been in the space for a while, kind of like that quote, this is the usability layer that we all need. This is the experience that we all want to have. And it's not going to be specific to one silo, one specific crypto tribe that says, hey, my blockchain is easy to use. What's wrong with all you? It's like, well, okay, that's great and all. But ultimately, we're not going to get everyone to use just one chain for the most part anytime soon. So having a usability layer that works for everyone for the entire space, I think it's also kind of an example of the space growing up a bit, kind of maturing over time, saying, hey, we all need to work together if we're going to actually be this mechanism for nonviolent global consensus about financial value. This is the promise of the blockchain, programmable money. And, we're in some ways fighting against each other when we really could be taking on, the banks. I just saw a Zero Hedge article today, trillions and trillions of dollars. The hedge funds now are potentially going to be bailed out. And it's like, come on, guys, this is, you look at the original, the original message in the original block of Bitcoin. We haven't solved programmable money yet. Let's get the basics going. Let's get this usable so we can have an alternative solution. Yeah,
we still got a ways to go, but it is exciting to hear that you're working on the testnet and things are moving along. Now it seems like you guys do you have your own other projects and other jobs? Like, is it its own company, or is it just kind of like a group of people who work on other projects?
Yeah, so FIO is a Cayman entity. It's a Cayman foundation, and DAPX is the company fully focused completely on building the FIO protocol. So the service agreement that we have now is FIO basically is saying, hey, we're going to continue to pay you as a service provider. And unlike other chains that have kind of done large token sales as private entities, any kind of token event or anything like that going forward is going to happen through the foundation, which is this nonprofit Cayman Foundation. And that way, there's not going to be these conflicts of interest involved. And even though DAPX and that relationship is really great, and those core developers are going to continue building the protocol, as we go into mainnet launch, there's a percentage of tokens that are going to be given to DAPX, their cap table, their investors, that kind of deal. And then the rest, not the rest, there's also others going out to members and all these other different, we can get into token distribution later. But the idea being the foundation is going to have tokens that are going to be used to incentivize further expansion and distribution of the development. So it won't just be DAPX, it won't just be one service provider. And they're fully on board with that. They understand the more decentralized the development efforts are, the more this is going to be valuable in the long term. We're not looking to create any kind of speculative token here. This really is a utility that's going to be used. The economic model is designed to be used in such a way that those who are registering their FIO domains and their FIO addresses are going to be adding value into the system, and then that's going to be given out to primarily the block producers. The block producers, anyone who talks about blockchain, they say, "Oh man, I love blockchain technology, but I don't like cryptocurrency." I generally kind of chuckle a little bit inside because I'm like, I probably don't know what the heck they're talking about, because it's the value of the cryptocurrency within these economic systems that provides the security of the blockchain. You're giving those block producers, those block validators, whether it's proof of work, proof of stake, or delegated proof of stake, you're giving them that reward. And it's the value of that reward that secures a chain as a Byzantine fault-tolerant system. So our model ensures that those block producers are well rewarded with the tokenomics of it. And at the same time, we understand those block producers most likely will be consortium members. Those are going to be wallets, exchanges, payment gateways who have skin in the game in supporting the protocol. There's also a percentage that goes out to, we call it a TPID. It's a way to identify the provider. So a specific wallet or an exchange or somebody who kind of facilitated that transaction will get 10% of those fees. And then I think it's 5% goes to the foundation as well. So we've kind of built this model in such a way that we're working to reward those who have the most skin in the game and provide the most value. But it's not done in like a central company way. It's really going to be this open foundation, this nonprofit. And as we expand the model, again, with my experience with EOS DAC, building DAC and DAO technology, we're going to have this great interface for people to vote and submit worker proposals and have a way that the foundation is going to be completely transparent in how it does things. And I'm really excited about that. I think the space hasn't seen a lot of really great kind of decentralized governance solutions. And when you mention DAO, of course, people jump right to the DAO hack on Ethereum and they think, oh, DAOs don't work. But there's some really interesting things about the EOS.io technology stack. FIO is a kind of using that technology stack, but heavily modified. Has some really significant interesting things you can do with permissions, such as time-delayed permissions and obviously multi-sig permissions, things like that, that I think are actually going to prevent those type of things from happening, as well as the ability to update and improve the contracts after they're deployed.
Thank you for explaining that. That was very well said. I remember we were very excited about the DAO in 2016 on this show, and then after the hack, we kind of likened it to the sinking of the Titanic. We were just kind of heartbroken.
Yeah. And it was a tough day for everyone who was excited about DAX and DAOs. It was just kind of like, wow, look at this, $100-something million flowing into this. Clearly, people believe this has to exist. And yet, what happened is so discouraging. Actually, if you Google preventing the DAO, my colleague at EOS DAC, Michael Yates, wrote a great post on Steam. And he goes into the actual detailed, specific permissions that the technology stack provides to prevent those type of attacks. But ultimately, I'm just excited to see the whole space moving forward. I'm not a maximalist in any way. I've been involved in many different projects. And I think it's great that, as certain things, as tragic as they might be, happen, they incentivize new innovation in other areas. And then we continue just going back and forth, making things better and better. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's true. And I know you mentioned dApps earlier, and I know that the FIO protocol is probably most people think about financial or digital assets. Do you foresee any usability for anything other than internet money, for lack of a better term?
As far as in the larger blockchain space, or specifically with FIO?
Specifically with FIO, do you think that that's something that might have some usability or something that you guys might get into?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's beautiful about this is it's simply a protocol. So essentially, it's going to be done and it's going to be implemented in all kinds of amazing, incredible ways we can't even foresee of today. The ability with that FIO data to put in structured data, for example, you could have full shopping carts, order invoices, all that kind of stuff. I mean, the blockchain show, for example, anytime you guys are doing donations or anytime you're working on any big project, you're like, hey, go ahead and send money here. Your domain could be a blockchain show. So it could be like donations at blockchain show. And even just having that marketing kind of guerrilla marketing perspective of every time you're interacting with the blockchain or cryptocurrency in any format, whether it's, like I said, orders or carts or donations or some big project or whatever, there's that connection to your brand, which I think is really interesting and really neat. But I look at this as a protocol where every single blockchain-enabled application, whether it's NFTs or somebody getting into real estate or healthcare or whatever it ends up being, the first thing they're going to run into is, okay, this is all super cool technology, but how do we get the actual end user to understand it, right? Like the usability hurdles are so high. I talk often, there's two major problems. It's key management and usability. So key management is being solved by some other projects, but as far as usability, I feel like we're one of the best examples out there. So they immediately going to run into, I've got my whole division excited about this project or my whole community, but they just can't even understand how to use the public addresses. They're too confusing. They send money to the wrong person. They don't understand what's going on. So I think every crypto-enabled project in the entire space, it can benefit from this. And so I'm really actually looking forward to seeing what the community develops.
That's really great. I don't know if this is a good example, but it seems like it's as easy as getting a Gmail address. And I know I'm trying to get Google out of my life, so that's probably not something I should be comparing it to.
It's quite difficult to remove Google from your life, unfortunately. They just do such a dang good job. They got this nice natural monopoly going on,
Yeah.
But I think that's a great example. And again, I like to stress that that's the beauty of what we're building. The metadata, the amount between the two partners, that's peer-to-peer encrypted. So it's actually using the key pairs between those people, a shared key, in a way that your data is going to be secure. There's not going to be this gigantic data store of information in the Google server somewhere that you can just hack and access. So I like that it is similar in that it's this beautiful usability. Like very few people run their own email servers, and I remember doing that back in the day. I mean, I built my first websites in 1996, and I majored in computer science in 2001. I've been in this space for a while, but everything changed when the tools became super easy with the cloud services like Gmail. But the major difference is we're going to have the opportunity to create decentralized network-based solutions, and that's not been around in the past. It's always been either the hierarchy is the most efficient way to go, and the network's too inefficient, or there isn't a governance layer to actually protect the stake of those involved. And with blockchain and DAX and DAOs, I think we have that. And so now we kind of have a container for something like FIO to actually exist. And I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that is really awesome, man. I know that we talk a lot about data privacy. I worked for Amazon for a very short period of time, and it was just, it's crazy once you realize how much of the internet runs on Amazon servers. And you mentioned Google's monopoly and how they're pretty much providing these services, but you're also giving up so much of your digital life, your digital footprint. It's actually pretty creepy.
That's extremely creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at if anyone's paying attention to the Edward Snowden stuff that he released years ago, I mean, it's just it's really creepy because the governments are directly involved in siphoning that data. I mean, I've talked to people who worked at major, ISP hubs and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, there's that room over there. We all know what happens in that room. All the pipes go into that room, and that's where the government gets to be involved. And so I look at this as being, we need like the travel rule, for example, where exchanges, and I heard I was just at the blockchain conference in Miami last week and just talking about the travel rule creating situations where even non-custodial wallets might actually have to start using this, and that's what that means is you have to, when you send crypto to someone, you have to actually include personally identifiable information. And that to me is just like, oh my gosh, it's anti everything we were trying to do here, right? But when I look at the possibility, for example, of people doing it with FIO Protocol, at least it would be encrypted, at least it would be peer-to-peer. If that becomes our reality, I'm hoping there's going to be decentralized solutions to accomplish it, and that people are going to be able to opt out. It's not going to be forced on them. But yeah, it's scary stuff.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys are out there doing the good fight for us. It's good to know. How would someone who's kind of new to the blockchain space, how would you recommend they get involved?
Basically, like we have token events that are coming, but they're not. I can't say they're not going to be, U.S. based. We're not a security. We're a utility token. We're doing everything. We've got some really great players to do everything we can to ensure this is completely the very best it can possibly be done. But unfortunately, it's one of those things I can't talk about much now. But again, unlike a lot of the other projects in the space where there's a lot of hype and speculation, FIO really is a utility, and that's how we're building the tokenomics model, and it's really going to provide a great value in the user experience. And we did our blockchain usability survey. We talked to different people in the space, and many of them were willing to pay pay an annual fee to get this value. And that's kind of the tokenomics we're looking for, is that this is just a utility token, and the kind of fees on the blockchain side will be controlled by the block producers in order to keep that speculation craziness from overshadowing the utility value. And that's, I think, what we're going for as well. Is that when you pay for your own domain and you register your own address, those are going to be reasonable costs and based on the value you're getting from it, and we'll adjust the fees to keep it in line with what people expect. But as far as future token events, what I can say is you can follow us at Join FIO on Twitter and all our different social medias. The website's FIO.foundation, and we'll definitely be updating this stuff publicly as we're able to. And I can tell you, we're working with some really great partners. You can see who our investors are on our website, so you can kind of get a feel for the type of people we're talking to. And people are very excited about this space, just like the quote you read from Finance Labs. It's very cool stuff.
Yeah, very cool. We talked to a few lawyers from different blockchain startups, and I imagine that you have to have like a pretty robust legal team for each of these projects, because there's entities that are just looking to shut these tech startups down. It's unfortunate, but I don't want to be conspiratorial or anything, but sometimes I wonder if there's like a concerted effort to push down this technology and delay it as much as possible so that the powers that be, like the big financial institutions, can get their own foothold in this space.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, conspiracy theories can go long and wide and deep, but what I like to do is just look at history and say, look, this isn't a theory. This is just factually what happened, right? You can look at the formation of the Federal Reserve in the early 1900s. You can look at the Bretton Woods Agreement in 44. You can look at the Nixon shock in 71. And these are just factual events that happened that shaped our financial future and the future of the world. And when we look at these different systems and you look at the different, unfortunately, wars over history that have been fought and the reasons for those wars, you follow the money. It doesn't take too long to figure out the people behind this, the financial backers, the people that benefit from these things. And I'm personally convinced when you start challenging the world reserve currency, or you start challenging the national sovereignty of a nation state by going after their currency, you start highlighting the inflation that they've benefited from for so long, you do become problem number one. And it's interesting too, the narrative, like we saw this again with the internet. Oh no, it's just where all the child molesters and thieves and criminals and all these terrible people are on the internet. This decentralized web of craziness we can't control. This is so terrible. And over time, that narrative changed quite a bit. And I think we're in that same stage where it's like, if they don't control it, they're going to fight against it and make people scared of it. And we've seen this even with the multinational corporations. Examples of the Jamie Dimons of the world, and people who are kind of saying, "Hey, this is super bad. I don't want anyone who works for me participating." And yet at the same time, I heard he had like almost 90-something patents that he was trying to file. They all got rejected for his own cryptocurrency, and now they eventually come out with their own project in the space. So it's kind of like, look at what they're doing, not what they're saying. And oftentimes, I think governments, for example, are looking at blockchain quite extensively. I think the International Bank of Settlements, these central banks, they're definitely looking at it. So there are people that understand this isn't something they can fight. It's too decentralized, too distributed. They're not going to be able to shut it down. But ultimately, that comes back to the importance of governance. That comes on all of us to create systems where we can govern ourselves as a community, so that there really isn't any weakness point where they can.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think that this is a complicated space. It changes so quickly, and I think that when you realize that other countries, like we heard China back in November was going to direct a lot of their resources towards developing blockchain, and when you hear other giant companies looking into it, you kind of realize like, oh, okay, the winds are changing. People are finally kind of starting to get on board. But a lot of it is going on in the background. So I appreciate you coming on the show and breaking this down a little bit more. The whole goal of this show was to demystify blockchain distributed ledger technology. And since 2016, we've seen it's just been full speed ahead. So again, it's been really great to talk with you. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of, give us any closing thoughts, what you're excited about. And, the floor is completely yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I just want to encourage everyone, those who've been in this space for a long time, like myself, and those who are just getting into it. It's worth your time to understand this stuff. Do the research, figure it out. I remember I spent just days of my life at bitcointalk.org in the early days trying to understand what the heck is all this stuff. it's one of the most exciting things potentially to happen within our lifetimes. It's really a revolutionary change, and it's something that could, I've got 3 kids, it's something that could really impact the future generations, where they can control and own their own store of value via cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology and the security it provides. And on top of that, mechanisms for governance. I'm here in Puerto Rico. You probably were familiar with all the different protests that went on to remove the governor, people blocking the freeways and stuff, and just really up to 1 million people engaged in trying to get their corrupt politicians to listen to them. And even now, just past Monday at Crypto Mondays, there were more protests going on for the latest governor, trying to get rid of her as well. And so it's just the idea that we can start using these systems, DACs and DAOs, for transparent governance is really exciting to me. Like, for example, Libraland is using the EOS DAC technology stack to build their government and create opportunities for other people to build DACs and DAOs. And then we can bring that into our own ecosystem with EOS Foundation and the FIO DAO, the Foundation for Interwallet Operability, running on these technology stacks. I think there's a lot of really neat stuff going on related to self-sovereignty, owning your own data, owning your own store of value, and owning your own community, owning your own governance rules that you get to participate in. And hopefully FIO will be a great example of that, both on the governance side and on the technology and usability side. Because ultimately, if technology doesn't help improve an individual, help make someone's life easier, then what's the point, right? So if you want to find out more, definitely check us out, FIO.foundation. Check out the explainer video. We have a demo video as well. Actually, we just recorded scenes for a new one yesterday, so that'll be updated soon. And also check out the white paper and the roadmap. The roadmap is kind of our implementation of the problem defined in the white paper. So we'd love to get your feedback for that. Join us on Telegram or Discord and Twitter. I'd love to engage with you all there. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, Luke, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for your time.
All right. Have a great one.
You too. My guest today was Luke Stokes, the managing director at FIO Protocol. That's the Foundation for Interwallet Operability. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this show. I know we've been putting out a lot of episodes lately. Thank you for interacting with us. Thank you for downloading. If you would be so kind as to share this with someone who you might think would enjoy this episode, we would very much appreciate that. I know Luke would as well. I can't thank you all enough for being part of this journey. Until next time. Goodbye, everybody.